Hello! Today we're going to be talking about pixelated pop art. So when I was a kid, I was really interested in pointillism, which is this form of art where you basically take a paintbrush with a very little amount of paint and you just do dots. And dots of different colors, and added up together you end up with, a painting that looks, somewhat realistic, somewhat like the thing that you're trying to paint. And for me that was always super cool because that, in combination with the 8-bit video games I was playing as a kid, made me realize that you can kind of deconstruct everything you see around you and reformulate them with just, a few spots of color. So that's kind of one of the things that's always bopping around in my head when I think about making art. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that you can make art with any media, any kind of medium whatsoever. So the last video that I posted was about this fuzzy guy over here, and you should go check it out if you haven't already. But basically, my whole point is that, art doesn't need to be some really scary, highfalutin thing that no one can access, and you can make art doing whatever. So to bring that point to fruition, I'm going to be making a Lego painting. Someone in my last video asked how old I was. And the answer to that question is I'm 5, clearly. My floor is covered in Legos right now, like the people at the Lego store today in San Francisco. Shout out to them. They had to deal with me, so. But anyways, I'm making a painting. So the way I decided the thing I wanted to paint with Legos is Andy Warhol's Banana, because pop art, I feel like, is the perfect media or the perfect thing to use with this kind of medium. So what I did, and I'm sorry this is so crude, but I didn't have graph paper, so I was just need to sketch it out real fast. But basically what I did was I made a grid. So this is a 32 by 32 peg grid, which means it's 16 by 16 bricks. And so I decided to sketch it out. So wherever there's a black box is obviously going to be a black Lego, and wherever there's a gold one is going to be a yellow banana piece. And to make things even more challenging, they didn't even have these 2x2 normal bricks at the store in black and yellow. They only had the pink ones and a couple other colors. And so if you watch the behind the scenes video for this video, it's me putting together all of these slivers of bricks into one brick. And then on top of that, to make things more challenging, they only had the 4x2 yellow ones. So I had to map that out when I was designing the banana. But art is challenging and fun, and we're just gonna deal with that. But anyways, so the way that I'm mapping this out is each box is one of these guys. So what I'm doing is I'm literally just gonna start layering. So I hope I have enough pegs or enough bricks for this video. And if I don't, we'll make it work. But anyways, one of the things I wanted to talk about as I'm here doing that, I guess I can move this up a little bit. One of the things I wanted to talk about is I find it really interesting that when I was in college, I had a lot of friends who did engineering classes or were engineering majors of some sort, and I always asked them, how did you get into engineering? And a lot of them told me that they were playing with Legos as a kid, and they found it to be just really fun and exciting, and so they always wanted to build things when they grew up. And I think that's really awesome and inspiring, kind of in line with the work that I'm doing, which is saying that you can always do art, you can always be creative, you can always make things even if you feel that you aren't good enough or don't have good enough ideas. It's just playing, and giving not only children access to those tools but also adults, I think, is something that's super, super important, and kind of my mission at the moment. And if I can get more people to doing art by making weird Lego sculptures on the internet, then I think I've achieved my goal. But yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm just putting these together, literally brick by brick. I think Legos are interesting because they're a 3-dimensional media, typically you're building whatever you're building. But I think it's also cool to use them as a two-dimensional media to make a painting. I think everyone's probably seen those like sculptures of like the man ripping his chest open. I don't remember the name of the artist, otherwise I would be referencing him. But I think work like that is super, super cool. But just thinking outside of the box and doing something like this is, you know, it's definitely different. I also find it like really cool and really rewarding that every time I tell people what I'm working on, they get really excited. And they'll tell me all the time, like, wow, that's so like awesome, like I really wish I could do art. And that's the whole mission of this, is that literally anyone can do art. And I don't, it does make me a little sad to think that, you know, when we're kids, we always have so much access to time to like make artistic things or do something artsy. Kids are like, you know, there's coloring books at every single restaurant. And I think I don't really know what it is societally that draws it out of us, but the fact that, at least in Western culture, we seem to not place value on the arts, or you think you have to be like an actual artist in order to paint things, is kind of sad. There's definitely room and space for the arts in terms of just being able to have the average person do them on a daily basis, and that's so therapeutic as well. I think, if anything, the fact that those like adult coloring books and like painting and drinking wine classes and art therapy are now becoming so popular is an indication that there's something really beneficial to doing art. So just for the average person to hang out and feel like they can actually make something. That's at least part of the reason why I do what I do. So now that we are about halfway done with the banana, we can start, you know, building a little bit higher on the like upper part of the banana. I wonder what Andy Warhol would think about this if he were alive. There was just an amazing retrospective of his work at the San Francisco Modern Art Museum recently. And I was lucky enough to go, and there's just so much art that he did in so many different media. I remember in college our art museum had some of his photographs on display for a little bit, which was crazy. I didn't even know he had been a photographer. And just like, I think one of the things that really makes me just confident in like doing art and continuing to do art is the fact that you know, anything that pops into your head you can create if you want to. And it might not be great, it might be kind of weird, and you know, maybe you'll have to retool some of the things you do, but at the end of the day, you're gonna have something that even if you're not super proud of it, you can still be confident that, you know, you did it on your own and that it's kind of quirky and kind of interesting. So as I'm filling in the rest of these pieces with pink, what I like to think about, or the way I plan my artwork in general, my art is very like, as you can tell from some of the videos, it's very much like an object against a background, and it's very like flat. And I think part of that is influenced by just like different media I've seen like from the internet and from video games over the years. But what's important for me is that I recognize that as my style, and I don't like compare myself to other artists who have like more talent in making backgrounds or doing whatever else. I recently emailed, it is time for more Legos. They come in these little Lego cups. I recently emailed an artist family friend of ours, and he sent me a list of Karita Kent, and I'll explain who that is in a second, but Karita Kent's like rules for creating art when she was teaching. And the one that stuck with me most recently was do not create things and analyze at the same time. They're two separate processes. And for me, that's like super relevant, because I feel like one of the biggest barriers to creating anything, writing, drawing, making any kind of art, is that we're really overly critical, and really critical on ourselves. And so if we feel that something we're creating isn't good enough, or is, you know, could be done better by someone else, we're obviously not going to be as satisfied with the final product. And that isn't to say that we should just make art and then leave it. Like, art is a growing process, it's a learning process, and every piece you do, you should edit and think about it. But it is to say that I think it's really healthy to, and I've been saying this in every video, just start. Just go. Just make art. Just like, honestly, you know, take a step in the right direction, and just if you've had a project that you want to do it. And if you don't know how to do it, ask someone or look up resources online. And I think for me, that's one of the reasons I made this channel, is I decided, like, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna get a head start. So I like how this is looking, but I think this upper banana needs to be fixed a little bit. And that's the other reason I love Legos as a media, or that, is that you can change things super easily. Like, even easier than painting. Like, you pop off a brick and it's totally different. So now, yeah, I think that's a little bit better. So I'm just gonna finish up with the last few of these relatively quickly. But yeah, the other really cool thing, so if you watch my other video about the faux fur painting that I did, is that the cool thing about using different media, and found objects also are probably something I'm going to do a whole series on, but the cool thing about using this kind of art is that it is super flexible and it is super easy to change, and you never really need to have a plan. So if I wanted to eventually like hang these on the wall somewhere, what I could do is I could just like pop these off, hot glue the backs, and then make it all one piece and just never take it apart. But the other cool thing is if I decide that, you know, I want to change these out, I could change this every single day. I could go in and take out different bricks or like make new ones. And I think that's why it's so appealing for children to like play with Legos to make different structures, is because it really allows for that kind of freedom, which is super important, and why I feel like a lot of my friends did end up doing engineering, because, well, if every job were just playing with Legos, I think we would all do it. But the appeal of being able to make things with your hands and see the result afterwards is really cool. And I definitely think that it's a good way to inspire people to try doing art in addition to engineering. So that's also something that's beneficial. Also, I think what's super cool about the concept of a Lego painting is that if I wanted to build up different layers, so let's say I wanted to do a higher layer of the banana, which I might end up doing, so it pops out a little bit, that would be something that's like super cool and super different. I think I might actually not have enough pink. I think I might have made a horrible mistake and not bought enough bricks, but we'll find out. It was so funny, the guy I was working with at the store to help me like find the bricks that I needed was like, oh, like, you know, your concept for this YouTube video you're talking about is really interesting, but it's gonna take you forever, like, it's gonna take you hours to make this. And it's like, nah, like, it shouldn't take that long, like, how long could it possibly take? You know, there's not that many bricks. And now I'm just like, oh, yes, clearly there are many bricks that are going into this. Although, to be fair, I did say the original premise of all of these videos on this YouTube channel was that there would be no editing. So it's just me starting from scratch and going. But that's fine. If you've made it this far, you gotta make it to the end. You gotta see this to its completion. But it's almost done. So I also bought extra backgrounds, because I think if you're like young and you want to have art in your apartment, so you don't want to necessarily go out and like buy a poster or pay for a frame, I think it's actually pretty cool to have some Lego art like this, just like hanging out in your apartment. It can be like a real, you know, like talking point to people who are visiting. And that's another thing that I think is pretty cool, is like taking ownership of your artwork. When, like, I've shown some people like old work that I've done, they're like, oh wow, this is really cool, like, who did this? And I'm like, oh no, this is something that I did. People are like, wow, that's like incredible, I didn't know that you were an artist, or like I didn't Like, that seems like it's something that's really hard to do. But, you know, I think if the average person could go out and make art and feel like happy and confident about it, I think that would make the world a better place. Alright, so, as always on this show, we are improvising, and I have run out of pink Legos. So I have like this lighter pink, and so we're just gonna make this more pixely. I'm gonna add in some white ones. See where this goes. And that's, you know, that's part of the artistic process too, is, you know, dealing with things when they don't go according to plan. And sometimes the art looks a lot better when you do that too. Not always, but having backup plans in art is definitely not a bad idea. Alright, so I'm about finished here. Just adding in a little bit more contrast with the white. Working in pixels or in pointillism or in Legos is actually like really useful for the rest of my art or painting in general, because it helps me break down whatever I'm painting or drawing. So when you're literally forced to have to pick spot by spot the colors of the thing that you're making, you really get to see like, oh, this is like what this is composed of. So it kind of looks like California. I love it. Yeah, maybe I'll fill this out with like blue. See if I have enough. I probably don't have enough blue. I do not have enough blue. So I read forever ago that the reason that bubblegum is pink, that iconic shade of pink, is that the guy who was making it at the time literally only had like pink dye. And that's like why we know it the way we know it now, which I think is pretty cool. So, random accidents can sometimes be good things. Alright. Cool. So I'm just finishing this up now, the last corner. And let's see if we have enough bricks. I think we do. Yes. Alright. Question is, can we put them in the right place? No, I think we're gonna have to move this around. No, that's definitely wrong. Well, let's see. Let's add in some more white. Alright. There you have it. Some weird pop art. It only took 18 minutes. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. But yeah, it's cool to have just like something kind of weird and kind of funky and kind of different to hang on your wall. So yeah, I don't know. I'll change it up a little bit. I'll have some fun. I'll have following videos. But thank you so much for watching and staying tuned. I'll have a couple other videos up tonight too. Thanks so much.